All right, everybody. Welcome to the first full week of 2021. I'm Perrin Lovett, and this is the Prepper Post News for Monday, January 4th, 2021. And it's going to be a big, busy week. Hopefully, a lot of fun for a lot of people. I mentioned the other day, and I posted something at the community that I'm thinking about doing a live stream. Probably Wednesday, because we have the joint session of Congress to certify the presidential election, and we've been talking about that. And in a second, I'm going to mention the new revelations from the mainstream media, which we already knew. But I'm thinking we don't know how long that's going to take. I do believe there's going to be some floor objecting all over the place, and this thing could drag on until midnight, so I don't think you want to watch me watching C-SPAN and babbling about who's scratching their nose or whatever. So probably gonna do a post circus wrap and just have some commentary. You'll have your chance, of course, to talk with me if the chat feature is available. I don't know how that works, but we're going to try, and we'll probably do the same thing again around the 20th for obvious reasons. So look for a more definitive announcement, I guess, today, tomorrow, or maybe even Wednesday morning. We'll see what happens. Hello to everybody over at the forum at fp.com, all of our friends at YouTube, and everybody listening at the podcast. And I don't know if the podcast would be live. I know very little about the technical aspects, but you can always join us on YouTube if YouTube is available. And I put a message out over the weekend at the community, just with things that are happening and that have been happening. Look for continued tech disruptions. On the 6th or the 20th, that might be the day that for some reason most of the internet goes down for whatever reason. So we'll be here. We'll be somewhere. Hope you can find us. Also, if you use a cloud-based data storage service, something like Google Drive, or if you have information on a WordPress site, Wix, online, Microsoft Office, anything that stores your information on somebody else's computer, now, like right now, as soon as you watch this, now would be a really good time to do a backup of all of your data onto a hard drive or thumb drive that you own and control, just in case. You never know. Odds are it's secure, but what do we really know about these crazy days? So our feature today, this is a very important topic that I've kind of been covering moving past, but I want to touch on it today. It's the absolute unadulterated evil of pop culture, and I'm going to get to that at the end. Feel free to comment about any of these stories, but we'll talk about that. I've got some interesting information, but I've noticed the past end of last week, over the weekend, there was an uptick in these peaceful protests nationwide. Maybe you saw that too in New York, Oregon, other places. The usual suspects have been very quiet for months, and all of a sudden they're acting up again. And also, as predicted, the Nashville 5G bombing story is just gone. It's like it never, we had a major truck bombing in a major American city, like it never happened. We'll never know. No motive. End of story. Forget about it. I think those two items are related, and I think it kind of plays into possibly into our next subject, and that is some last-second changes to the narrative. We saw the election, the popular vote. We saw the voting of the Electoral College. We saw 7 states sending up split ballots, and we've seen some contest here and there. There have been certain allegations that certain people don't want you talking about at all, unless you're making fun of them. So I'm just making fun of them. But we also tried to covertly get out the word that, there's still a legal process and there are other possibilities, all supported by law and the Constitution, and all in keeping with American historical precedent, that this thing is not over until it's over, like anything else. The mainstream is now coming around to that, and they're now, this week, last week, putting out information that I was giving you, a month ago. Politico has a story. Surprise, surprise. What do you know? Mike Pence, in his role as president of the Senate, controls all certifications and all votes in the Senate, to include a joint session. Who knew? You did. We've also got, these are pretty good stories about exactly how the process works. Again, we talked about this weeks ago, but they're talking about it now at the LA Times, which might be my favorite of the big national newspapers. One of the very few left that still does, does a good job with real journalism. And also there's practically a mirror article at the Chicago Tribune. I linked to all of these stories at freedomprepper.com. They may be in the description below the video. I just want to kind of move on through these. Today's feature topic is going to be really, really interesting, especially if you have kids or grandkids or great-grandkids, or just any children that you care about at all. Or if you were once a child yourself. Some of us were. Not me, but I call this next section Law and Disorder. All of these are kind of related. But I saw Paul Craig Roberts threw out just a quick comment the other week about this crazy judge in Fairfax County, Virginia, who's been doing things like getting rid of bail for felons. Now he's taking down pictures that were in the courtroom because pictures are racist or something, whatever. He's out there, and Roberts was asking, who could elect such a person? Well, there's more to the story, and Revolver covers this judge's background. He likes to portray himself as a champion of the people, the Hispanic, the black people, the people of color. He himself is from El Salvador. And I was looking at his name. I'm thinking, that does not sound Spanish in any way. It sounds more German, Bernhard. Well, it turns out he came here as a refugee from El Salvador when he was a young man or a child, because his father was kidnapped back in, I guess, the late 70s, kidnapped from his job at the Israeli consulate. So read that story at the Revolver, and I keep saying, when you, whatever your nation is, when you're taking in outsiders, be extraordinarily careful, because they will always, 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 if given a chance, try to recreate the conditions that they fled from in their previous country in the new country, even if it totally upends all of society. We've seen something similar, or the other end of this phenomenon in California. The Guardian has a story about some of our good, hardworking illegal aliens in California who are just sick of the U.S. and they're packing up and heading home because things just don't feel right. And it goes into, things don't feel right because they're not being given, all of this welfare that all, poor Americans are getting now because the economy's been completely destroyed. And they said it's discrimination, and they're leaving. And that I saw some numbers. We're waiting on the Biden surge this way across the border, but well, just take a look at that. A related story that most people might not think is related. Crisis Magazine has something about when liberty is not enough, and liberty is the great American catchword. That and freedom. Well, freedom, that's not the end of the story. Everybody always forgets that there's a responsibility tied to freedom, and freedom without God isn't very free at all. So just take a look at that. This also goes into the feature story of the day. And there was a book that I meant to, maybe I did mention this on Friday, I can't remember, but it's called American Awakening. It's by Joshua Mitchell, and I've got a review from Asia Times. I want to get this at some point this year and take a look at it. It's about how America was built and maintained as a Christian nation for 200 years, and it's only in modern times that it's become a secular, cesspool. And previously, when you had any kind of crisis that would hit, and the book covers a couple of them, people would always rely on their Christian faith, and it always got them through. Now things have changed, and we're once again confronted with a crisis, and people are responding with a religious fervor, but in place of religion, they're substituting all of these secular beliefs, and and instead of solving the crisis, it only deepens it. I'm not quite sure about the book. The review is very good. I encourage you to read the whole thing, but it's something I want to check out. In the Asia Times story, there's a link to Amazon if you want to go ahead and beat me to it and review that yourself. I threw this one in, Sports Desk, just for the heck of it. I had, until the very end of last month, I had forgotten it was football season. And so I did some checking in, and I misspelled something here. I got to correct that. So, what was it? New Year's Day, Friday, or New Year's Eve? No, New Year's Eve, Thursday. I watched a few seconds of the Armed Forces Bowl. I got all these new bowls I'd never heard of. The Cheez-It Bowl and the Bowl of Salad Bowl, and all of them were canceled because of this craziness. But Mississippi State and Tulsa played. Hail State, won 28-26. But it wouldn't be football season without a good bench clearing brawl, and they had one. Sports Illustrated covered that with a video, just for what it's worth. Also, there's a story. This is moving towards the feature topic. I don't want to go over time here, but NBC News, such as it is, had an interesting story about Generation Z, the young kids in high school and college that are gravitating towards the Republican Party, but they want to change it. And Donald Trump aside, I just don't see any use for the Republicans whatsoever. There is a uniparty. You have two sides, two factions of the same group advancing the same agenda. And I would argue that the Republicans are probably the worst of the two evils, because they at least make some kind of feigned pretense of respecting traditional American values, and then they just run right over them to march in lockstep with the Democrats. So in addition to being evil, they're also dishonest. But they have misled all of these kids, and as has the culture. That's our feature topic. And now the kids, are trying to reinvent the GOP to be this crazy secular evil thing. And it's not the kids' fault. They've been indoctrinated by the schools, by their parents, by Ben Shapiro and Hollywood, or Hellywood as I call it. Speaking of kids and indoctrination, I saw something from Ann Barnhart about the Sodomite Agenda, which never stops, and she had a poster. Her quote is, she gets this right. There's a progression of their propaganda. First, they wanted tolerance, then they wanted acceptance, then they wanted you to ratify their behavior, and now they're expecting participation. And this stuff is real. She has a poster. I have a link, a graphic here. It says "Fight Bigotry." And it has the results of a study that I found. 98% of straight men are unwilling to date trans women because of hatred. This has to change. And the picture features a small child crying. And it looks like a little girl, but with the subject, this could be a boy dressed like a girl. It's a child. They're always aiming this stuff at the kids. I found the study, and yeah, it's 98% of straight people, period. Interestingly enough, only like other straight people. And I would argue that 100% of really straight people only want straight people. She didn't mention this. The poster doesn't mention it, but they also found infighting on the left, the extreme left. A super majority of gay men don't want trans women, and even a large majority of lesbians don't want trans mentally ill people. But they always aim this stuff at the kids. Why? It feeds into the feature. The final word of the day is Hellywood. people call it the hell mouth, the devil mouse, the evil that flows out of the entertainment industry. It's nothing new. There's a reason why church fathers and the Romans, the Greeks, the Chinese, and just about everybody else has always distrusted actors and associated them with deviance on the level of prostitutes. And they only in the past 50 or so years became celebrity stars that everybody has to respect. But this, the agenda is real. It's everywhere. There's a reason I don't watch television or go see movies anymore, and I don't miss anything. I had a conversation with somebody, and it got me thinking, so I did a little internet research. It was about a movie that I saw when I was a kid back in, it was December of 1982. A movie came out called The Dark Crystal. Some of you will remember it. Some of you might have taken your kids to see it. It's been on television since. It was a weird, sci-fi fantasy movie about this planet run by aliens. And the main characters were these vulture bird creatures who were evil, and they controlled the dark crystal that kind of gave life to the planet. And there were some good, like rock troll critters that were, in the end, these two beings merged and they turned into these angelic creatures, and then they went off into space. You'll remember, it's a freaky movie. The other characters, the heroes, are these little elves, but they're not elves, they're elflings. But they're called gelflings. Gelfling, elf, like a gelded elf, because they were very androgynous. It was just strange. The other characters, there was an old one-eyed witch who lived in a planetarium. This is all important for what I found. And then there were some little innocent, cute little Cabbage Patch Muppet people that were the victims. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So I went and looked at it, and turns out there was a prequel made. It was one of these streaming service videos that came out, I guess last year, that gave the backstory. And I just read a little bit about this, and all of a sudden it all made horrible sense. And then I saw something Vox Day had. He had a quote from the Crazy Days and Nights blog, which keeps track of the insanity of Hollywood, about the Dark Crystal and Jim Henson's agenda. So I just want to tell you my takeaway, and see if this makes any sense to you. If you haven't seen the movie or watched the prequel, keep it that way. If you watched it and just thought it was weird and you didn't see any symbolism, that's good. That means you're normal. But just be aware, and I may have some of this wrong, but there's so much wrong to it, there has to be something wrong. So it turns out these angelic, tall, glowing beings came down to this little planet, and in the beginning, and they met with the only intelligent inhabitant, who was the old witch. She was the Eve character of this place, and they presented themselves as fallen angels. They were, for some reason, some heresy, thrown out of their place in outer space heaven. Does that sound familiar? And they were bringers of light. And they gave her all kinds of knowledge, like she was eating from the tree of knowledge. And there's even some trees involved. It's very symbolic. Their heresy, by the way, everybody in this alternate universe thought everything was a triangle. Everything, us, the planet, our relationship to the cosmos, God. Everything was, a triangle, a trinity, three sides. Their heresy, these beings, was that they theorized that there was only two sides to the great beyond, or to God, good and evil, which were the same. And that's why when something happened and they got split into the bad bird people and the good troll people, good and evil is really the same thing. And there is no, in that sense, there is no Trinitarian unity. There's no, say, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's right there. I guess it took the prequel to put all this out, but so they live their separate lives, and the whatever they're called, the bird monsters, are evil, and they capture the little innocent Cabbage Patch simpletons, and they suck the life out of them. And the Cabbage Patch people, to me, represent small children. They take small children. If you remember the movie, it was a horrible scene. It was not a kid's movie. They strap them in a chair and they suck the soul out of them, and it reduces these happy-go-lucky little Muppet people to zombie troll slaves. And the life force comes out as a liquid that the bird monsters drink. It's purely satanic, and it incorporates elements of vampirism, pedophilia, and cannibalism. I always add 3 letters to the end of this LGBT plus. I call it plus V, P, and C, plus vampires, pedophiles, and cannibals, because and they want your kids. That's where they ultimately go. And the reason they put this movie out was and it was subtle. Nobody noticed it at the time. A lot of people thought it was off. It was wrong. It was too dark. It was a little weird. But they have all this stuff embedded. And it just gets in your, entire generations, get it in the conscience, and they go through life, and, this is bad, but bad is good. I remember that from somewhere. It's all okay in the end. And it's really not. There was a lot of speculation. I have a link to the blog post. A lot of good speculation about why people do this and why they aim it at kids. And it's everywhere. It's literally not every big movie that comes out and every TV show, but most of them. And there are people who have been in the industry who can explain this stuff a lot better. It's just riddled with symbolism that most normal people can't see, but you tend to remember little bits and pieces of it. So take away from that what you will. Let me know your thoughts. The best way to handle this stuff is to just have absolutely nothing to do with it, because they put it out there because they hate you, they hate your God, they hate your kids, and they want your kids. I wrote a letter to the editor in a Eastern European publication that didn't get published. It didn't need to, because they're all over the topic anyway. I was pointing some of this out about the same time that one of their national leaders was pointing out the same thing. That's why a lot of those countries are deeply hated by the left, and there is a massive war against them right now because they are still holding to the traditional ways, and they're doing a very good job. So pray for them, and if you've got kids, grandkids, screen everything they watch. Don't just, I remember when I saw this as a kid, I saw it in the theater with my friends. I was kind of free range. I didn't think it was that scary, that funny. I didn't think much of it at all. Honestly, I don't think I liked it. But it's your responsibility as an adult to watch out, and just know that these people never, ever, ever stop with this stuff. So cheery thoughts for a great week. We're going to be back tomorrow, and then I'm probably going to have the news Wednesday, and then some sort of, if not a live stream, then a live recapping of the day's events after they unfold. And we're going to find out what those are. So everybody, have a great Monday. Hope you had a good weekend, and I'll see you soon.